Hi, have you missed me? I've missed you a lot, like a lot. But I thought that I'd ask Miss Fallon if I could be helpful and do a video for her, for you guys, for Macbeth, just to alleviate her workload a little bit. So today you're going to have me talking at you and reading Macbeth to you rather than Miss Fallon. My copy is slightly different to yours, so I won't be able to give you exact page numbers or anything like that, but I'm going to be picking up from after the Porter's speech in Act 2, Scene 3. So you should have already looked at the Porter's speech with Miss Fallon and how that's all like an element of comic relief, and it provides a bit of humour for the audience, a bit of a break in between all of the tension and the suspense and the plot build-up. And now things are going to get quite serious again, so you need to open up your copies of the book, have a pen ready, and make sure that you're ready to do some annotations and make some notes about Act 2, Scene 3 after the Porter's speech. Okay, so I'm going to start from the stage direction where Macbeth re-enters the scene. So we're starting with Enter Macbeth. Is thy master stirring? Our knocking has awakened him. Here he comes. Exit the porter. Good morrow, noble sir. Good morrow, both. Is the king stirring, worthy Thane? Now, it's interesting here that Macduff is calling Macbeth worthy Thane, because that's a reminder to us as an audience that everybody else still believes that Macbeth is a good person. But obviously we know that he's not, because he's just committed regicide and he's killed the king. So you could make some notes there about how Macduff is referring to him as worthy Thane, because we know that's not the case anymore. King stirring, worthy Thane. Not yet. He did command me to call timely on him. I have almost slipped the hour. I'll bring you to him. I know this is a joyful trouble to you, but yet is one. The labour we delight in physics pain. This is the door. I'll make so bold to call, for 'tis my limited service. And then Macduff exits. Now again, it's worth noting that throughout the majority of this part of the scene, Macbeth doesn't really say very much, and the things that he does say are very short, very sweet, and very simple. There's a few different reasons for this, and like that structural choice by Shakespeare to make Macbeth use language in such a specific way. He's using these short sentences probably because he's feeling the guilt of what he's done. It could also be because he doesn't want to give too much away. Now, any of you that have ever told a lie before will know that once you start going and going and going, you get lost in your own words. So he's probably trying to keep things very specific and very simple so as not to be caught out having done what he's done. If you look at Macbeth's lines here, you've got good morrow both, not yet, I'll bring you to him, and then the labour we delight in physics pain, this is the door. So he hasn't said very much, and up until this point, Macbeth has very much, he's spoken a lot. You know, he has his soliloquies, he's constantly talking, he has very long, like, passages of speech. And when he does discuss things, he talks about them in a lot of detail. There's a lot of imagery in the way he speaks, and that's just not happening here. So we've got this real contrast between Macbeth at this point in the play and Macbeth earlier on in the play. So we can see that development for his character and the characterization by Shakespeare to show that possible guilt, the fear, the worry about what he's done, and the fact that he doesn't want people to know what he's done, obviously, because it's the worst thing that he could possibly have done. So that use of short sentences is really, really kind of noticeable, and it's a deliberate choice by Shakespeare to show that about Macbeth. Sorry about all the jump cuts, by the way. I've had to stop it a few times because people come into my room whilst I'm trying to do this. So if it's a bit jumpy, that's why. If you need to pause the video at any point to make some notes, then please do. I'm not going to tell you off, obviously, but those of you that have been in my class before know that I have a habit of going off on a tangent and talking to myself anyway, so the fact that I'm talking to myself in my bedroom means I'm probably going to do that. So if you do need to pause it, please pause it, make as many notes as you can on your copy of the book or any like notebook you've got, and then just continue the video. And no one's going to tell you off if you need to pause it. So continuing on from Macduff's exit, goes the king hence today? He does, he did appoint so. So Macbeth is continuing to speak in these very short sentences. He's not saying very much, he doesn't want to give a lot away, he's being very short, very specific. The night has been unruly. Where we lay, our chimneys were blown down, and as they say, lamentings heard in the air, strange screams of death and prophesying with accents terrible of dire combustion and confused events, new hatched to the woeful time. The obscure bird clamoured the livelong night. Some say the earth was feverish and did shake. Now, in that speech, Lennox has said that the night was strange. He starts off by saying the night has been unruly, which could be a reference to the weather. So that's pathetic fallacy. By saying it's been unruly, that could imply it's been stormy. And as you guys are well aware, storms and things like that can give that impression of chaos, destruction, danger, which is exactly what happened the night previous because Duncan was killed. So Shakespeare's purposefully using pathetic fallacy there to set that scene for the audience and remind them of how bad things were last night. Lennox also says that some strange things happened in the night. They could hear screams of death. The obscure bird is talking about an owl. So the owl was doing weird things, and it's just all like, he says that the whole night was very, very strange, which again can link to this act of regicide. The act of regicide was a really big no-no, like you don't do that. It's massively against the rule of the world, the rule of God. So it's almost like nature's reflecting that and showing how bad Macbeth's choices were. And again, Macbeth just repeats, "'Twas a rough night." He doesn't say anything else. He's still keeping his cards very close to his chest, and he doesn't want to say very much, so that it makes him seem quite tense and worried and frightened, like we said before. He doesn't want to give himself away. He doesn't want to show any kind of guilt or suspicion on himself for what he's done. My young remembrance cannot parallel a fellow to it. So he's just saying, I've never experienced a night like last night. It was so strange. Everything was so strange. And obviously Macbeth is not going to say anything because he wants to keep his cards close to his chest. Macduff then re-enters. So he's come out of King Duncan's room. Obviously he's gone in there and found him dead. So we're going to see his reaction here. So there's probably going to be some bits that are quite worth annotating. So make sure you listen to what I say and make some notes. "Oh horror, 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 tongue nor heart cannot conceive nor name thee." So there he's saying he can't believe what he's just seen. He's in shock. And that's going to reflect to the audience through that triple of horror. So horror, horror, horror. It's a really bad thing. So the language there reflects that. "What's the matter? Confusion now hath made his masterpiece. Most sacrilegious murder hath broke ope the Lord's anointed temple and stole thence the life of the building." So there he's talking about Duncan's body and saying that it's obviously he's been murdered, and he's implying that it's as if someone has broken into the room and stolen Duncan from the world, from the Lord, and things like that. So where it says the Lord's anointed temple and stole thence the life of the building, someone's gone in there and murdered Duncan, and he says it in a way as alluding to someone has broken into the room and stolen King Duncan from the world and from God. So he doesn't outright say he's been murdered, but he pretty much says it. So then Macbeth says, "What is't you say the life? Mean you his majesty? Approach the chamber and destroy your sight with a new Gorgon. Do not bid me speak, see and then speak yourselves." A Gorgon, if anybody doesn't know, is like the Greek, like a gargoyle. So if you look at it, then you turn to stone. So he's saying, you know, go in there. And it will, like, the shock of it will turn you to stone. He doesn't want to say what he's seen because it's just so shocking to him. So Macduff is so affected by having found his king murdered in his bed that he can't even talk about it. He's shocked, and anybody that goes in there and sees this is going to react in the same way as him, which is pure abject horror. If you look on this, you're gonna, you know, be stuck looking at it forever. You'll never get the image out of your head. So it's a really horrific image. Macbeth and Lennox exit, obviously, to go into the room and see what it is. Macbeth obviously already knows what's in there. And then Macduff continues shouting, screaming. So, "Awake, awake, ring the alarum bell, murder and treason, Banquo and Donalbain, Malcolm, awake, shake off this downy sleep, death's counterfeit, and look on death itself. Up, up, and see the great doom's image. Malcolm, Banquo, as from your graves, rise up and walk the sprites to countenance this horror." So he's trying to wake everybody up. And his use of language still is reflecting that horror, the shock, and how terrible this is. So murder and treason, obviously treason, you've got that link to tyranny. Macbeth is a tyrant. So by saying murder and treason, whoever has done this hasn't just killed someone, they've killed the king, they've committed regicide, they've gone against Scotland, they've gone against the will of the world, the will of God. So that idea of treason is really important. Death's counterfeit is, linking to forgery. So shake off this downy sleep, Death's counterfeit, and look on death itself. So he's saying, all of you wake up. You're not really dead. You're just asleep. Our lovely king is not just asleep, he's dead. So he's saying that they need to shake off this downy sleep, Death's counterfeit, this fake death that they're in, and go and look at real death, which is their, murdered king. At this point, a bell rings and Lady Macbeth enters. Now, she obviously hasn't been seen since everything that happened prior to this. So she comes in. What's the business that such a hideous trumpet calls to parley the sleepers of the house? Speak, speak. So she's obviously putting on an act here. She's like, why are you making so much noise? What's happened for you to be waking everyone up in this, ridiculous way? So she's putting on an act, she's faking. She knows why this is happening, but she's got to keep up appearances and act like she doesn't know. Macduff here then refers to her as, "Oh, gentle lady." So we know Lady Macbeth is not a gentlewoman at all. So similar to how we said before, with him referring to Macbeth as the worthy thane, by calling Lady Macbeth gentle lady, it shows that everybody's got these misconceptions of these characters. They think that they're honourable, or they think that they're just sweet, quiet women, and we know this is not the case. He then goes on to say, "'Tis not for you to hear what I can speak. The repetition in a woman's ear would murder as it fell." So Macduff is saying here that he thinks because Lady Macbeth is a woman, she's too vulnerable to hear about the murder. So this links to those gender stereotypes at the time, the fact that women were considered less than men. It's kind of ironic in a way, because obviously we know that she had a big part to play in the murder of the king. So for Macduff to say everything that's happening is just too much for a woman to comprehend, they won't be able to understand it, it'll upset them too much, it's kind of ironic because she organised this, she orchestrated it. And then she wanted to, obviously Lady Macbeth wanted to cast off her femininity before as well, didn't she, when she said unsex me here. So the fact that she is being stereotyped by her gender by a man kind of really illustrates the fact that she so desperately wanted to be rid of her femininity, because that's all she's seen as, is just this weak woman, which isn't what she wants. She wants to be strong, she wants to be powerful. We then have Banquo enter, and Macduff continues, "Oh, Banquo, Banquo, our royal master's murdered." And Lady Macbeth then continues, "Woe, alas, what, in our house?" So she's keeping up appearances, she's putting on this false act. "Oh no, the king's been murdered in my house? Oh, this is horrendous." And it's all fake. We know that she knows exactly what's going on. But again, it links to that kind of double act that she's putting on. She's able to be this conniving, this cunning, this cold, to act like she didn't know what was going to happen and she didn't play a part in it, and play the role of the innocent, gentle lady who would react in a, "Oh no, what are we going to do?" kind of way. So she's acting like the woman that she so desperately doesn't want to be. Banquo then continues, "Too cruel anywhere. Dear Duff, I prithee thee contradict thyself and say it isn't so." So Banquo says it doesn't really matter where he's been murdered. He's been murdered. It would have been bad wherever he was murdered. Then he says, "Say it isn't so, contradict yourself." So it's like, please say you're lying and that this isn't true. So again, they're all really upset, and this highlights the fact that King Duncan was a really good king. Like, people liked him, and that's unusual for monarchies. And again, really, like, later on in the play, contrasts when Macbeth eventually becomes the King of Scotland. He's hated. He's like the worst king ever. So to go from having Duncan, who was like the king of kings, this really nice guy, everybody really liked him, he was very good at running the country, to then ending up with Macbeth, who's this, tyrannous, rotten, manipulative man who commits treason, shows that direct contrast between their two characters. So then Macbeth and Lennox then enter again, and suddenly, now that everything's out in the open, to an extent, he's not having to hide this anymore as much as he was, because now everybody knows the king's dead. Macbeth has a lot to say, and it's interesting when you look at his language here. So again, make sure you're ready to pause the video if you need to. I know I've been talking quite a lot, I apologise in advance, but I hope it's helping. So, "Had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived a blessed time, For from this instant there's nothing serious in mortality. All is but toys. Renown and grace is dead. The wine of life is drawn, and the mere lees is left this vault to brag of. The way he speaks is very poetic. Had you just walked into a room for the first time to see that your wonderful monarch has been murdered, you would probably react in the same manner as Macduff, which would be shock, unable to talk about it, really don't know how to respond. Macbeth, however, is able to put together this very poetic use of language to describe his grief, and to an audience it comes across as very false. The wine of life is drawn, and the mere lees is left this vault to brag of. So he's using metaphorical language there with the wine of life is drawn. And it's just false. It's not the way that you would react to this. And again, it kind of shows the audience that Macbeth has had a chance to think about this, and he's probably considered what he was going to say beforehand. And it seems a bit practiced and rehearsed to us as an audience. And then Donalbain is here. He says, "What is amiss? You are and do not know it. The spring, the head, the fountain of your blood is stopped. The very source of it is stopped. Your royal father's murdered. Oh, by whom? Those of his chamber, as it seemed, had done it. Their hands and faces were all badged with blood. So were their daggers, which unwiped and we found upon their pillows. They stared and were distracted. No man's life was to be trusted with them. Oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them." So before we continue, we're going to take a quick stop. So Donalbain's come in, he's like, "What's going on?" And Macbeth has, again, in quite a long, wordy way, said, "Your dad's dead." Oh, by whom? Malcolm's asking who has killed his dad. Those of his chamber, as it seemed, had done it. So that's his servants. He's saying it seems like the servants did it. They killed him. And he then Lennox then goes on to say that there's blood on their daggers, blood on their faces, blood on their hands, which obviously has been put there by Macbeth, as Macbeth killed the servants as well, and then made it look like the servants killed the king. So it's all part of this cover-up. And then Macbeth then says, "Oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them." So he's said there that, yes, I killed the servants. I couldn't believe what they had done, and in my fury of what they'd done to our wonderful king, I killed them. And then he goes on to explain that a bit more here. So Macduff says, "Wherefore did you so?" So when did you do that? And Macbeth says, "Who can be wise, amazed, temperate and furious, loyal and neutral in a moment? No man. The expedition of my violent love outran the pause of reason. Here lay Duncan, his silver skin laced with his golden blood." So there again, his language, it's so poetic. It's not the way someone would speak after they've found out that their king had been murdered, especially when Macbeth is technically the cousin of Duncan. So if you'd found out a family member had been murdered in this way, you wouldn't be talking like this. So it's all very false. And the way that he talks about Duncan here shows how manipulative he is and how he can very easily switch. So he refers to his skin as silver, his golden blood. So he's using very positive language to describe Duncan after he's murdered him. And his gash stabs look like a breach in nature, for ruin's wasteful entrance. There the murderers, steeped in the colours of their trade, their daggers unmannily breached with gore. So he's saying there that they were covered in blood, their daggers were covered in blood as well. Who could refrain that had a heart to love, and in that heart courage to makes love known? So he's trying to say that he went in there, he saw the servants, saw them covered in the blood, saw Duncan dead, thought, "Oh no, this is terrible, I need to kill the servants." And it was all because he was so shocked and disgusted and loved Duncan so much that he had to kill the servants. Lady Macbeth at this point has realised that Macbeth isn't really helping them here, because it does sound a bit suspicious. So she pretends to faint here. So she says, "Help me, hence ho." And then Macbeth says, "Look to the lady." So she's pretending to faint to almost detract attention from Macbeth and his great long speech about Duncan's silver skin and golden blood to her and her fainting, because she's a woman and women can't handle these things. So again, she's playing that appearance of the innocent weak woman, but she's playing it to her advantage because she knows that Macbeth is saying too much possibly, and he's creating that element of suspicion for them because the way he's speaking is disingenuous. So she pretends to faint, and then everyone is distracted from Macbeth's suspicious actions. She's probably also done this because Macbeth didn't tell her about this part of the plan, so he has deviated from their part of the plan, which was to kill Duncan and just see what happens. And the fact that he's killed the servants as well is something that she wasn't suspecting, and they haven't planned for this. So she needs to distract everyone from that before that possibly becomes something that gives away what they've done. And then Macduff says, "Look to the lady. Why do we hold our tongues that most may claim this argument for hours? What should be spoken here, where our fate hid in the auger hole may rush and seize us? Let's away, our tears are not yet brewed." So Malcolm and Donalbain there are talking to one another as brothers. They're not really talking to everybody else. It's like hushed just to one another, and they're saying, we need to get out of here. They might come for us next. They've killed our father. What if they try to kill us? Banquo then says, "Look to the lady," and Lady Macbeth is taken away because she's still pretending to faint. And Banquo continues, "And when we have our naked frailties hid, that suffering exposure, let us meet and question this most bloody piece of work to know it further. Fears and scruples shake us, in the great hand of God I stand, and thence against the undivulged pretence I fight of treasonous malice. So Macbeth, Banquo is saying there that everyone needs to go and get ready, and then they can meet to discuss what's happened. They need to discuss the murder, they need to figure all of it out, and they then need to come up with some idea of what's going to happen next. So everybody exits apart from Malcolm and Donalbain, and then they here continue their conversation. "So what will you do? Let's not consort with them to show an unfelt sorrow is an office which the false man does easy. I'll to England." So Malcolm is going to flee to England. He's going to leave Scotland, go to England and hide for a bit because they're worried for their lives. Their father's been killed, they could be next. Donalbain then continues, "To Ireland I, our separated fortune shall keep us both the safer. Where we are, there's daggers in men's smiles. The nearer in blood, the nearer bloody." So Donalbain said he's going to go to Ireland there, but there's a very important quote here, which is "there's daggers in men's smiles." Now this is metaphorical, and he's saying this because people hide their true intentions, and this is a perfect description of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth prior to this moment. They have been hiding their true intentions, and it also echoes what Lady Macbeth said earlier in Act 1, Scene 5. So their whole kind of persona, their manipulation, the fact that they've kept secrets and they've committed this crime, it all comes across within this imagery of "there's daggers in men's smiles." So it's that idea of people are putting on a false face, that they're faking things, it's a facade, and that they're actually hiding their true intentions. So that's a really important quote, and it's quite short and easy for you to remember. "This murderous shaft that's shot hath not yet lighted, and our safest way is to avoid the aim." So Malcolm says, "Yep, there's definitely something going on, but we need to escape for now, to be safe. Therefore, to horse, and let us not be dainty of leave taking, but shift away. There's warrant in thy theft, which steals itself when there's no mercy left." So that is the end of the scene. At the end of this clip, if it works, fingers crossed it'll work, I'm going to put in some of the quotes with some annotations just to make sure you got the important stuff, and then you can feel free to look back over this, take down any other notes, and make it go along with any other work that Miss Fallon sets you on this scene. I hope it's been helpful. If it has, let Miss Fallon know, send her like a private message or something, because for the moment I'm still kind of not doing much at my new job. So if I can continue to do these to help Miss Fallon out, and if they're helping you, then let her know, because I can always get a few more of these done. It's lovely to see you, I suppose. I hope you're all very, very well and staying safe, and I will hopefully see you again soon. See you later, guys.